Thank you very much for coming to today's panel discussion on the topic of patents and the innovation economy, the view from business leaders. This panel discussion is brought to you by the Center for the Protection of Intellectual Property at George Mason University School of Law. The Center for the Protection of Intellectual Property is dedicated to the scholarly analysis of intellectual property rights and the innovation that they facilitate both commercially and technologically. We are very pleased today to have with us four very distinguished business leaders and representatives from a broad swath of the innovation industries to talk about patents and the role that patents play in their business models and in their commercialization of technology. All too often today, in discussions about patent policy, the focus is very much on the public face of patents, which is very often litigation. But litigation is really just a very small component of what constitutes patents and what patents do for us in our lives today. In fact, one can think of patents very much like computer software. You're very much unaware of the benefits and value that computer software brings to you when you use it day in and day out, every second of your life for word processing, databases, email, and whatnot. But of course, you become very much aware of it when a bug appears and it doesn't work exactly the way you want it to work on those rare occasions. But yet you're completely unaware of the tens of millions of lines of code that make that program work and work effectively and efficiently in producing the values that you want in your life. And yet what we become very much aware of, in fact, are not the tens of millions of lines of code, but that one glitch in the one line of code that causes the bug, of which makes us very upset and which we post on Facebook and tweet about. So for today, we have our various representatives speaking about the value and benefit of those equivalent of those 10 million lines of code, or millions of lines of code, tens of millions of lines of code, the analogy from software of what patents do for us today. First, we have Brian Lord, who is founder and managing member of the New Venture Advisors, a venture advisory and services firm that provides strategy, finance, IP, and management services to emerging and high-tech, high-growth technology companies. Prior to joining New Venture Advisors, Brian served in senior management roles at the U.S. Department of Energy's Oak Ridge National Laboratory, at Amber Wave Systems Corporation, an MIT spinoff, and last but certainly not least, at DECA Research and Development Corporation, the R&D company that was founded by inventor Dean Kamen, the inventor of the Segway. Brian is highly regarded as an expert in IP management, having published in this field and having raised over the course of his career over $45 million in venture capital funding, and he has been responsible for technology licensing deals in excess of $70 million. He's also been engaged in the patent policy debates, including co-founding the Innovation Alliance, and he has testified on patent innovation and patent policy before the Small Business Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, the IP Subcommittee, the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, and he was a panelist at the Federal Trade Commission's hearing on the evolving intellectual property marketplace. He earned his MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and a JD from Notre Dame Law School in Indiana and a BA from Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. Next on our panel, we'll be speaking Roger Martin, who is Senior Vice President and Chief IP Strategist at Qualcomm Incorporated. Qualcomm is a company that makes the chips that make our cell phones possible today, and not just our cell phones, but our smartphones in particular. Founded and then ultimately commercialized the technology in what's known as CDMA that was created by Drs. Jacobs and Viterbi. It has become the basis of all of the amazing benefits that have flown to our lives through smartphone and mobile technologies. Roger started at Qualcomm actually in 1993 as an engineer. And while working there full-time as a patent agent during the day, drafting and prosecuting some of Qualcomm's fundamental patents, he attended the University of San Diego School of Law at night, where he ultimately earned his JD, graduating magna cum laude in 1997. Over the last 10 years, he has worked primarily on patent litigation and was recently selected to lead the new IP strategy group at Qualcomm that has overall responsibility for the strategic direction of Qualcomm's IP portfolio. He graduated from the University of California, San Diego in 1988 with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and very importantly, he served in the U.S. Navy from 1989 to 1993, being discharged as a lieutenant. Next, speaking today will be Earl Bright, also known as Ab Bright, who is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel of ExplorerMed, a venture-backed medical technology incubation company. Ab has many years' experience as a business advisor and patent attorney, including being a founder and serving on the executive management teams of 4 medical device startup companies. He was also director of the intellectual property West Coast operations of Guidant Corporation, and he in fact began his Guidant career by helping to establish the legal department for the newly formed cardiac and vascular surgery division. He has spoken on patent innovation and patent policy at numerous events hosted by governmental agencies and professional organizations, including the Patent and Trademark Office, the Medical Device Manufacturers Association, the American Intellectual Property Law Association, and also the Federal Trade Commission. He began his career as a design engineer, working on the F-16, F-22, and A-12 aircraft. And after law school, he worked at intellectual property firm of Burns, Doane, Swecker, and Mathis for about 5 years. He has an MBA from Columbia University and University of California, Berkeley, and a Juris Doctorate. And excuse me, I apologize. He has an MBA. He has MBA from Columbia University and a JD from the University of California, Berkeley, and a BS in mechanical engineering from the University of Oklahoma. And then last, but not least, we have Larry Horn, who is the president and CEO of MPEG LA, one of the world's leading patent pools for standards and other high-tech platforms. MPEG LA was in fact the very first patent pool formed in the mid-1990s after the Department of Justice reversed its decades-long position that patent pools were automatic violations of the antitrust laws. MPEG LA has since been responsible for the licensing and widespread adoption of MPEG technology, the digital format used for video presentations on DVDs and streaming over the internet. And its innovative commercial success has quickly led to more patent pools being formed and created in everything from LASIK eye surgery to JPEG technology. Before joining MPEG LA, Larry was head of business development, marketing, and sales for Martech Biosciences Corporation, where he launched the company's first nutritional medical product lines. He evaluated and developed new business ventures and planned intellectual property strategies. Before that, he was president and owner of HKM Corporation, and he advised early-stage investors in the Discovery Channel and devised business plans for media industry and other financing. He's also served as Senior Vice President and General Counsel of Public Broadcasting Service and was an attorney with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's Office of General Counsel. And he has also taught Chinese law at Georgetown University Law Center. He earned his JD from Columbia University, and he has a BA in Chinese Studies from Yale University. As you can tell, these are 4 distinguished business leaders who have extensive experience in the innovation industries from all aspects, from biotech to patent licensing to high tech to patent pools and venture capital. We will run our panel discussion today as a discussion. So I will be posting some questions to them in which they will answer, and then we will have a couple follow-up questions, and then we will take questions from the audience, or perhaps they can ask themselves questions. So we'll begin with Brian, and the first question that I will pose to Brian and the other panelists today is that clearly patent innovation is very important to what you do in your business and in your career. Could you please describe the role of patent innovation in your business?
Sure. Well, thanks for the invitation, first of all, from CPIP, and great to see you guys again. And thanks for all of you for being here today. As Adam mentioned, I've got experience in really 2 aspects of the patent world, and I thought it might be useful to answer the question from both of those points of view. The one side of the equation is from the tech transfer side of the coin. I worked with an MIT-based spin-out. I've done work in the tech transfer business at the Federal Laboratory in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and also with Dean Kamen's DECA Research Group. And the other side of the coin is really the emerging investment space in intellectual property. There's really a couple of ways that people invest in intellectual property. One is traditionally, the investment's been done through the venture capital model, where venture capitalists invest in early stage technologies and oftentimes are, of course, very interested to make sure that those technologies are protected by patents. But the other side that investors are investing in IP today is in what people call the patent secondary market. And there actually is a market where patents are being bought and sold. And I've done work both as an investor and currently am doing work with one of the leading brokerage firms in the patent market space today. So I'll try to keep my comments brief for my distinguished panelists here, but I'll touch just on both sides of that for your benefit. On the tech transfer side of things, I think patents really do three things for the tech transfer ecosystem, if you will. First, patents help make ideas tangible. So ideas are kind of a squishy thing. How do you actually get your arms around what an idea is, and how can you really work to try to transfer ideas? And one of the things that patents do is it helps bring definition to what exactly that idea is. It's a way to actually define it. The second thing that patents do in the tech transfer area is it helps make those ideas protectable at the same time. So you might be able to define it, but you also are able to put some boundaries around it. And you certainly have heard stories about the proverbial inventor who clutches their idea to their chest when to their grave for fear that somebody might rip off their invention. Well, we all know that patents serve one of those purposes, to help provide that protection so that people can communicate about what their ideas are. And the last thing in the tech transfer area that patents do is they really provide incentive. Some people in this debate have made the argument that patents really provide incentive for innovation. I'm not convinced that patents necessarily incentivize innovation. I think people have lots of motivations independent of an instrument such as patents to innovate. But what I am convinced of is that patents incentivize investment. And that is the other eye that I think you need to keep your eye on to think about the importance of IP in the tech transfer side. Of course, the challenge that I faced and that others in the tech transfer business always face is I've got this great pool of technology, these great researchers, oftentimes federally funded. How do I get this out into the marketplace? And the answer always is, who's going to invest in this idea in order to bring it to the market? And really, without the protection of patents, you not only can't define what it is that you're moving out, you can't protect it, but that investor certainly is not going to invest in it. So to answer your question, Adam, I think those are the three things on the tech transfer side. On the patent investing side, some people have asked the question, is it a good thing that there's a patent secondary market? And I submit to you that absolutely it's a good thing. Patents are property rights. In the patent secondary market, patents are currently being financed, they're being transferred, and they're being marketed as assets of companies. And there is a robust market taking place in that patent secondary market that I speak about. What you really have then is investors who are investing in the gap between the cost of infringing those patents and the benefit of infringing those patents. So the cost of infringing a patent is the potential for getting that speeding ticket or that parking ticket or getting the damages award from the court that says, look, there's a penalty for infringing people's IP. And the benefit of infringing, if you will, other people's IP is the free use of it. And what patent investors are doing is really investing in that gap. They're really investing in that in the arbitrage between the cost and the benefit of using or infringing other people's IP. And the fact that we actually have an instrument and a private market that encourages people to fund the enforcement of those patents as well is a very good thing. And it's a fascinating marketplace, and it's a growing marketplace. But the fact that this marketplace exists is also, in my estimation, one of the reasons why we're all being brought to this debate, because it is an area of focus, certainly, for those that want to decrease the cost of infringement, to make noise and to make concerns and to cast stones around the viability of this marketplace. I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but patents are also important in the patent secondary market as well, obviously.
Roger, the same question to you.
Yeah, so as Adam said in his introduction, Qualcomm is both a product company and a licensing company. Many of you probably haven't heard our name, or if you've heard our name, you're not entirely sure what we do. We're a very large company now. Our market cap is well over $100 billion. We just don't have a consumer brand. So you've heard of Intel, right? We have a higher market cap than Intel. We're a bigger chip manufacturer than Intel is. We make and sell more chips than Intel does. Or other consumer brands like Pepsi. We're bigger than Pepsi. And so we're a very, very big company without a big consumer brand, even though we have all a very, very large size. So if you have an iPhone, if you have an Android phone, that iPhone is powered by Qualcomm's chipset. All the handset manufacturers, they buy their chips from Qualcomm to make them work, and it allows you to surf the internet at very fast speeds. And so there was a time when we weren't a very, very big company that nobody heard of. There was a time when we were a very, very small company that nobody heard of, and in San Diego, started by some college professors that were mine. And so I started there when it was a very, very small company and had sort of a front row seat. And we had this very compelling and disruptive technology that would take cell phones, which if you remember in the early 90s, a cell phone was something that a very rich person would carry in a briefcase, and maybe a doctor had one, and it would cost $2 a minute or something like that to make a phone call, and so it was completely impractical and unrealistic. Well, we had a technology that could make that small enough to fit in your hand or your pocket, and the technology would allow you to talk in a way that reduced the cost of a call from, let's say, $2 a minute to like 10 cents a minute. The problem was that we were a small startup in San Diego and nobody had ever heard of us, and the technology was so risky. In fact, there was a Stanford electrical engineering professor who said that it wouldn't work, that it violated the laws of physics. And he wasn't saying that as praise, he was saying that literally. He believed that it didn't work, he believed that Qualcomm was a fraud. So anyhow, he still works at Stanford, and so, so he's done okay. But Qualcomm has also done okay, and the reason why is because we tried to sell this technology, we tried to make the technology, make phones and infrastructure that use this technology, and sell it to carriers at the time like AirTouch, which is now Verizon, AT&T. And they wouldn't take a risk on Qualcomm unless we promised that our patents, or correction, our technology was patented, and that we would license that to other competitors. And we have, and we did, and we have ever since. So we license now a couple of hundred companies that are both competitors and customers of ours, allowing them to use this same technology. And then we ourselves, our competitive advantage is we still have the engineering brain power there. So if you fast forward 20 years, now we still lead from the front. We are still pushing the edge of the technology. Your smartphone that is in your pocket is more powerful now. It's faster. It's better at graphics. It streams the internet faster than that desktop that you have back at work or at home or in your office. The speeds of the wireless communications are faster, I'll bet you, than the speeds you get at home on your internet cable service. That's all possible, again, over that 20 years because we continued to innovate and we licensed that technology. It became extremely successful. Now there are 6 billion connected devices on the planet, 6 billion mobile devices. There are now more mobile devices in the United States than there are people in the United States. It's become a very lucrative ecosystem, and there have been a lot of newcomers to it. But it developed over a very, very, very long time. So Qualcomm's role in that has been not only to make the products, but also to license the technology. On the product side, as Adam said in our introduction, I worked on patent litigation at Qualcomm for about 10 years. Those were always defensive litigations. That is, we haven't had to assert our patents in our line of business since about 2008, and before that it was well back in the 2000, at the turn of the millennia. The point being, everyone has accepted our royalty rates. Everybody has prospered in this exploding market as a result of our royalty rates, and nobody has fought them. And what we see now is entire companies, Apple, Google, Microsoft, restructuring their entire company around the mobile ecosystem. And that all happened under the existing patent laws, under the existing standards related patent laws and so forth. So I've been lucky to have a front row seat at that success story, but it continues. We're now branching out into other things. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, we announced a smartwatch, a watch that will sit on your wrist and talk to your phone. And the thing that's interesting about that isn't that it's a watch, but it has a display technology in it that you can see in the sunlight, that is full color, it's a touch screen and so forth, and it uses almost no power. And if one of the things that you've been conditioned to with your smartphone is to turn off the LCD because it uses a lot of power, this is a display that is going to make that a thing of the past. So Qualcomm continues to invest in R&D. We spend about $4 billion last year in R&D. We develop products. Not all of them succeed. The watch is an experiment, and hopefully it'll succeed. But we take the product sales and the licensing, and we feed that back into R&D. That's about all I have for how we use IP in our business.
Excellent. Ab?
All right, so I'm a very, very small company compared to Qualcomm. So at ExplorerMed, as a medical device company creator and incubator, there's really only 5 of us at the initial stages. We raise our money from venture capitalists who've raised their money from limited partners, and they give us a small amount of capital and tell us go out and try to solve some of the healthcare needs that exist. So we're the beginning stages of a medtech ecosystem. And so I wanted to describe a little bit to you about that medtech ecosystem because I think it helps, frame and then make the understanding around IP and why patents are so important to us really, obvious. So just a little bit of background in terms of healthcare in the United States. So over the last 30 years, the annual mortality rates of our population is down by 16%. I think even more incredible, the disability rates for the elderly in our population are down by 25%. So we're able to make people more productive and live longer, more fulfilling lives. And I think as a society that's a great thing, but just from a personal standpoint of being able to enjoy our friends and family for longer periods of time and not have to deal with suffering, but also the fact that they're part of what is helping to drive our overall economy. They are what helps us to continue to lead the world in terms of economic prosperity. And so I actually had a lot of different choices as an attorney, a lot of different industries that I could have gone into in private practice, and I specifically chose to leave law practice to go into the medical device industry for just that reason. It was my way and my ability to be able to help impact the health and welfare of other people, and I love it to this day. So in the medtech innovation ecosystem, there's kind of 4 major players, which I'll loosely characterize in these categories. So one is the fuelers, the other are the innovation catalyst, the next are the consumers, and the 4th category are the regulators. And so in that first category of the fuelers, you have venture capital, you have investors, and you have public markets. In the innovation catalyst, you have small startups or incubators like us, you have large companies, and you have other inventors and entrepreneurs. Oftentimes it'll be an individual physician, maybe it's a grad student, a post-grad student, somebody who's coming up with innovation. Then you have the consumers. The consumers are the patients, the physicians, and the hospitals. And then you have the regulators, FDA, the Patent Office, Medicare, third-party payers, and then also professional societies. And they all play a role in this ecosystem. And they have a risk-benefit mentality throughout all of it. So they're always trying to optimize their risk to benefit, each one of them. The fuelers are looking at their financial risk versus the return. The innovators are looking at financial risk and return, but they're also looking at clinical safety versus the clinical benefit. Consumers want a clinical benefit, but they also want it to be safe. And for each individual condition that somebody suffers with, that changes. They also have a financial cost, to the benefit. So how much are they willing to pay for their improved health care? And then you have the regulators. The patent office has to make sure that there is a very narrowly defined scope to each patent and that the patent is only covering what the innovator is really entitled to own. You have the FDA, who's constantly going through this balance of deciding what is the clinical benefit versus the risk to the patient to undergoing a particular procedure. And CMS has got financial costs to benefit, So we're all balancing that. And every one of them has a fixed tolerance to risk, however. And so if any one of them gets thrown out of balance, the whole ecosystem begins to fall apart. And we're in that circumstance right now, unfortunately. We're in actually a very kind of crucial phase. And what has happened is that limited partners have stopped funding venture capitalists, and venture capitalists have stopped funding medical device technology and biotechnology because the risk to the benefit got out of whack. And that's been for various reasons. One has been the FDA. The FDA has become extremely risk averse. And to the point that for a good number of years, close to 2.5 years going on now, they will not say yes to things until you have tested it, until there's no other test that you could do. That's extremely expensive, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So the way the medtech innovation ecosystem works is that essentially the large companies in the space are dependent upon a steady diet of new innovation from small companies. Small startup companies are dependent on a steady diet of venture capital to fund the innovations, and venture capitalists are reliant on investors and returns. Now, if you look at the medtech industry as a whole, most of all the companies are small. So you have 6,000 U.S. medtech firms in the country. 3,300 of them have less than 20 employees, and only 150 of them have greater than 500 employees. So these are all primarily very small companies. They do create, however, 357,000 direct jobs and 1.6 million indirect jobs here in the U.S. So one of the things about the medtech industry is that all of those small players can't really afford to go and do manufacturing outside of the United States. Also, the detail and the scale and how small we're working on takes such refined manufacturing skills that virtually all the manufacturing for the medical device industry on that small detail and sophisticated machining that needs to be done is done here in the United States. Where does IP play into all of this? Okay, so if you look at the average cost to bring a new medical device to market, there's two pathways primarily through the FDA to do that. One is called a 510K process. In order to bring a new device to market in the 510K process, on average, it takes about $75 million and anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Often, sometimes even longer than 10 years. On the PMA side, it typically takes about $135 million to bring a product to market through the PMA side, which is PMA is for significant risk products, and the 510K is for mild to moderate risk products. And a PMA typically takes somewhere between 8 to 15 years to bring a product to market. So we're talking about huge investments, huge amounts of time and testing that goes into bringing those. In order to, as Brian talked about, in order to get investors to make that kind of investment, they need to be able to protect that investment and see a return on the other side. And that's where patents are so fundamental to the industry.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you all for attending today and taking the time to discuss these issues with us. I certainly appreciate the role George Mason is playing in allowing this dialogue to take place. I think there's a great deal of balance that has been lacking and a great deal of balance that is needed. And I think discussions like this really promote that dialogue. And I certainly welcome it, and I know the panelists do too. As Adam mentioned, MPEG-LA was founded, its sole reason for being, in fact, is to bring innovation to market. Innovation in the form of standards and other complex platform-like technologies. By way of background, in the 1990s, early 1990s, a move was afoot to come up with a standard, which became known as the MPEG-2 standard, for the digitizing of video in order to be able to deliver high-quality video products through zeros and ones rather than the analog system which had been employed to date. And the process was run through the International Standards Organization, a unit of the United Nations, with an engineering committee by the name of MPEG. standing for, if I get this right, Moving Picture Experts Group. And they were very proud. Their processes were very pristine. They welcomed all input to try to come up with really the best uncompromising standard they could possibly come up with for turning video into zeros and ones and allowing consumers to turn them back out again in order to get near film quality video in their homes. The standard was a wild success on paper. And many standards never get beyond paper. Many standards die on the cutting room floor, as they say. In this case, in the mid-1990s, it was recognized that one of the single biggest challenges to the adoption of the MPEG-2 standard, of which engineers from all over the world were very proud about having developed, was what were we going to do about the intellectual property issues surrounding it. In this case, where you're dealing with a standard that dealt with how to get rid of, in short form, redundancies within a picture and from one picture to another picture in order to compress the information and turn it into zeros and ones so it could be transported in a very disciplined way. It was widely known that the technologies were probably covered by literally hundreds of patents and by possibly dozens of patent holders. And one of the big concerns was what happens when someone tries to take this to market. How are they going to get access to all of the intellectual property rights they need for the essential property that is the underlying foundation of this standard? MPEG-LA grew up directly as a solution to that problem. It was founded in 1997. Actually, it was founded in 1996. It went into operation in 1997, as Adam said, following the Department of Justice's business review letter, which was issued in response to our business plan. And our business plan spelled out to the Department of Justice how this kind of enterprise could be conducted in a pro-competitive way consistent with all relevant antitrust laws, so that there was a level playing field, so that patent holders who used the technology were not favored over users who did not own patents, and that everybody was treated the same throughout the whole ecosystem. A very important underpinning of the solution was that this is an alternative license. If someone chooses, they can negotiate patent rights with individual patent holders as they please. But if they choose to take a pool solution, they can come to MPEG-LA and get a license. At the beginning, there were a lot of doubters as to what this would be and how it would emerge. We started with 8 patent holders. It was widely known then that those 8 patent holders didn't represent all the technology that was out there. But it was also recognized that unless you found efficient ways to access the technology and take licenses, that this technology, like others before it, also might die on the cutting room floor. The license became a wild success. And it grew from 8 patent holders to 27 patent holders. It grew from 100 patents to more than 1,000 patents. And today it has approximately 2,000 licensees who subscribe to the MPEG-2 license under the same terms for the entire market. What has this meant to the market? What has it meant to innovation? Obviously, that's the key. What we provide is a pool licensing solution. One size fits all. You sign the license. The royalty rates are the same for everyone. And we deliver for that same royalty rate the 8 patent holders or the 27 patent holders, the 100 patents or the 1,000 patents. It makes no difference. In fact, over the course of the license, the royalty rates have actually decreased instead of increased, even though the number of patent holders has gone precipitously upward. It started at $4 for a set-top box, a decoder, and now the royalty rate is half of that at $2. MPEG-2, and I think MPEG-2 is successful for a lot of reasons, but it is certainly recognized as the most successful consumer electronics standard in history. And I don't think that is without assistance by the fact that a pool license was available to allow users to access it and allow creative people, like some represented, all of them represented at this table, to make their own products using the MPEG-2 compression standard as a foundation. We estimate today that the MPEG-2 standard has generated sales of some 7 billion devices worldwide. that it is responsible for some 60 billion video discs, and that it has generated more than $4 trillion in product sales. And that's to say nothing of the employment that it has spawned, the raw materials that have been used, and the content that has been generated out of this digital industry. It has spawned all kinds of new industries and products that some 15, 17 years ago were not even on the landscape, whether they be digital TVs or DVD players or digital set-top boxes or PCs with DVD and the like. That model, and that's the model that we started, and that is the model that has created an innovation wave really through the market, has been replicated now in many cases. We have competitors who do the same, do similar things to us. I will not say they do the same. I would never say that about our competitors. But we now have some 10 licensing programs for various standards in the market. And those 10 programs include some 8,000 patents in 74 countries with more than 160 patent holders and almost 6,000 licensees. So it's a huge undertaking. And again, those are the numbers across all of our patent pool programs. But they were all started because of the MPEG 2 program, which became the template for these future programs and which was replicated in the market. And all of those technologies themselves have generated their own set of products and their own set of wealth for the world's business markets. And again, we look upon ourselves as kind of that last mile between the innovations that inventors do and the implementation of those innovations in the market. Again, we don't favor a particular technology ourselves. Our total role is to be available when users make their own technology choices and then come to us because we can provide them with an efficient mechanism for accessing them. And again, I think it's fair to say, and it's no understatement, that innovation is the key to our business.
Thank you for those opening remarks. From what we have heard, that patents have served a very important and fundamental role in venture capital, in licensing, manufacturing. A common theme that a lot of you have heard is that there was doubt and opposition, and that patents served an important mechanism for signaling what a technology was to the market, to users, and to investors. So changing our focus a little bit from where your companies have come with the patented innovation to where we're going in the future, what do you think is the most important issue facing your business today with respect to patented innovation? And if we could just take just a couple minutes each for this, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. So Brian?
No doubt the reason why most of you are here is that you've heard a lot about the patent debates, the patent wars, the bad names called about patent holders in the press. And that fact is the single biggest threat facing my business. The most negative shift towards patent holders that one can imagine, and the most backwards, frankly, for what patents, which were a genius innovation in their own right, to be part of the constitutional framework, to really be turned on their head. Today, if you're a patent holder, you're a pejorative, you're a patent troll. If you are a market incumbent, you're an innovator, almost de facto, almost without challenge. And that rhetorical dynamic is both threatening to my business, but I also think it's threatening to really the future of our economy and our future of technology development in the country. What you really have, and this requires far more time to go into than I'll take here, but I want you to think about the dynamic, which can be looked at in many different respects, but really a debate between market incumbents today, sort of the present day technology market actors, and upstarts, and the future of the technology market, the disruptors in the marketplace. What patents really do is they really give a tiny little shield to the Davids that are eventually going to try and fight their way through a very difficult future ahead of them to one day, one or two or three, survive and down the road become themselves an incumbent in the marketplace. Patents were not designed to be a tool of the current present-day technology incumbents, of the big guys. But what we have in our patent dynamic today is a view that if you are a big guy and hold patents, that's good. And if you're a little guy and you're a gnat and you're a bad, evil troll. And that's backwards. So I would challenge you to think about really the debate going on between one voice who is large, by definition, who is incumbent by definition, and who has a lot of money to be able to control a lot of the discussion points, and those that will be there someday, but are small and underfunded and struggling and inventing and innovating and hopefully going to bring these technology improvements to market in the future. And those are the folks that you need to be thinking about when you think about this debate.
Adding to that, I mean, generally with the theme of devaluation of patents, let me talk specifically about standards related or standards essential patents, which I think Larry can also talk about. There's an idea that if technology has been widespread, sort of the more widespread it is, the less valuable it must be, which I think is a little backwards. If you think about your smartphone, and where do you charge it at night? You set it probably on your bedside table. You charge it on your bedside table, right? And that's not because you like the apps or you think you're going to stream Pandora, or because you like you're going to use it as a pillow, you like the metal surrounding the edge or something like that. It's because you have this subconscious desire to be constantly connected to the people that you care about, to the information that you care about, and lots of things that you don't even care about. You carry it around with you all day. Think about how much anxiety that you feel when you forgot your phone or you left it in the car. Or I challenge you tonight to try to take your phone and instead of charging it on your bedside table, when you know you're asleep and not using it, go charge it in your kitchen instead and see how well you go to sleep. My point there is the technology that enables that always-on connection, the thing that is the subconscious desire that you have to be connected, that is made possible by standardized technology. That is made possible by the technology that allows the cell phone to talk to the base station in a way that keeps you constantly connected for the lowest power possible. Because that's subject to a standard, a lot of people start to think, well, if I'm a late entrant and I want to be a device manufacturer and that's already occurred, that innovation has already occurred, I see that as like a cost. It's part of my bill of materials cost. And in the same way that I don't want to pay a whole lot for the chips that are in my phone or for the display that's in my phone, I also don't want to pay very much for the intellectual property that's in my phone. And I want to drive the cost of that down. And we see that happening. And because patents themselves are a creature of law, they're a constitutional creation, the people that you need to press on in order to devalue the patents is the U.S. government, right? So you send people to Washington, D.C., and you argue to them that patents should be devalued. In particular, the kind of patents that you don't have, that is, the kind of patents that you need, you say, those should be worth less. And then at the same time, out of the other side of your mouth, you argue, but my patents on apps that are non-standard essential and so forth are more valuable. So one of the challenges we see here is trying to balance taking nothing away from innovation that's going on at other companies and so forth, and outside of the standards, trying to balance the respective interests of the people who are making the devices, without which we don't have the devices, and the people who are inventing the technology that someone wraps plastic around and stamps their brand on and sells as their device, without which we wouldn't have those devices. So again, from Qualcomm's standpoint, we think we're in a unique position to make these kinds of statements because we are both a product company and a licensing company. As I said before in my opening statements, we haven't had any litigation of any concern except for defensive litigation. That is, we are a target of lots of the same patent assertion entities, let's call them, or people who are trying to license us patent as everybody else. And yet, we are not trying to devalue the patents of the people that are coming to us. If we infringe those patents, we pay royalties, we strike business deals with people. That is what we do. It is in a free market commercial enterprise. At the same time, we are also licensing our patents freely to all comers on fair and reasonable and non-discriminatory terms. So if I can only leave you with one thing, it is with respect to standards essential patents. A lot of people don't understand just the magic that they sort of take for granted that arises from these standards. And Larry talked a little bit about on the video, and I would love to hear him talk a little bit about the magic that is made possible by the MPEG standards.
Yeah, so the number one issue I alluded to a little bit earlier is FDA and FDA's requirements that are driving up the cost of small companies and investors to be able to bring medical innovation to the marketplace. And as a result of that, the patents are becoming even more important to the industry in order to protect that most significant investment. And so the potential to be collateral damage in these abusive litigation practices that people are alleging going on, and the collateral damage being the weakening of the patent system is a fundamental concern to us. And so, I hope that everybody is able to take an even approach to the solutions to be applied to the issues. So that we can continue to bring forth, good technology. It's quite frustrating for those in the medical device industry around the demand for bringing lower cost healthcare and better quality outcomes, of which we're trying to do. Our technologies are always easier and easier, faster to be used by the physician, can be used on larger number of patients than ever before, and actually drive down the overall price of healthcare, except that the FDA is wanting to delay and delay and delay bringing those technologies to the market, and delay is money. I mean, be frank, we don't most of all these small companies that are financed with venture capital aren't making profits, and so therefore we're living on investor dollars, and each month is $500,000 to $1 million just to exist. And so if you delay a company being able to bring its product to market to be able to begin to recoup that investment through sales by 12 months, 24 months, you're talking about adding $24 million onto a technology that otherwise didn't need it. But that's what we have right now, and as a result, we can't compound the problem by also weakening patents such that people stop making the investment in a whole.
The biggest challenge I see from where I sit in my own company is the distortion of the value equation in the market. And what do I mean by that? I mean that certainly in our business, it's important to establish a balance between what a reasonable user is willing to pay for technology and what a reasonable developer is willing to take as a return on its hard-fought investment. And it's that balance that creates the playing field in which pools operate and which adoption of technologies are so dependent. And as that value, and we as a company, by the way, in licensing this technology are totally dependent on the value equation as well. We don't go around threatening people. There are occasions where lawsuits have been brought. With 2,000 licensees, actually with 6,000 licensees, the number of lawsuits brought on technologies that we're involved with has been fewer than 40 in terms of the number of defendants. What we're dependent on is appealing to folks to say the adoption of this technology depends on your respect for that intellectual property. And in fairness to the people who developed it, we're asking you to pay your fair share for your right to access it in order to use their technology. And it's that balancing that is so critical to the development of patent pools. Well, what happens when that value equation is distorted and destroyed? What happens is that patent holders are less willing to participate in patent pools on one end because they don't feel they're going to get their rightful return from the patent pool from participation. So they might as well go it alone. And on the other hand, the reason for that is the respect of potential licensees for intellectual property also wanes. In some cases, not because they don't recognize the fairness issue, but simply because they don't perceive a threat by not cooperating and respecting intellectual property. So what we've seen is that value equation has started to distort and come unbalanced as the respect for intellectual property has declined. And again, by that I mean directly that as property rights property rights qualities of intellectual property are not as recognized as they formerly were, then the whole system starts to fall apart, and this ecosystem that everybody's referred to starts to get out of whack. So that, to us, that's the biggest challenge.
Thank you. We started a few minutes late, so we'll just take a couple minutes past 1 o'clock to see if there's any questions from the audience before we have our concluding remarks. Or if the panelists perhaps have any questions for themselves or want to pick up on the point that was raised. Yes.
I was wondering if anyone on the panel, you kind of talked abstractly about the way that patents relate to the willingness of people to invest in your companies and that sort of thing. I'm curious, could anyone tell of a tangible example of where someone was willing to invest in a company because the patents gave them an extra confidence that would reduce the risk of their investment?
At least three of us can give some tangible examples of that. The company that I was the general counsel of for 8 years was a spin-out of MIT. It was founded by a material science professor and his student. Tech Transfer Office gave an exclusive license to the material technology to the new company that was created. I happened to be their outside counsel at the time. And it was a classic story of a professor talks to Tech Transfer Office and happens to have a frat buddy who, 20 years ago now became a venture capitalist. And he called him up and said, I got this great, world-changing thing. And he said, great, you got a patent for it? And the answer is yes. And thankfully, MIT had filed the patents for it. Those became the exclusive rights of the company. Through that, I think was an initial investment of $700,000, and about 9 months later, $20 million came into the company. So that technology would not be in the marketplace had MIT, first of all, not had the scientists and the platform to have the inventor, the scientist there in the first place, and certainly wouldn't have happened and gotten in the marketplace if they didn't have the world-class licensing operation that they do to move that out in the marketplace. It's just classic tech transfer birthing story, really.
AirTouch, which was the predecessor company to Verizon, merged with some other people, would not buy our technology or invest in our technology unless we licensed to Motorola, unless we showed them a tech transfer package, including patents, and licensed Motorola, who was at that time, this is the early 90s, the only maker of cell phones and the only reliable one. And if we had not done that, then the whole United States would have gone with a different technical solution called GSM, which was a European developed standard, which has data rates in about the 14.4 kilobits per second range, which is enough to text, but not enough to do anything beyond voice and text. And we would have missed, let's say, at least 10 years. I'm a believer that eventually people would have come around and the winning technology would have, but that would have set us back probably worldwide by about 10 years.
Since they gave examples of positive, I'll give examples of negative. So we recently looked at starting a new company in an area based on a technology that a physician, individual physician, had patented. And as we sent out term sheets to investors to invest that into that project and allow us to create that company, part of their contingency was, well, you've got to get a license to that patent in order for us to make the investment. So we went to that individual and tried to come to an arrangement, and we couldn't meet on terms. His expectations were higher than what we thought it was worth, and so investors said no. So, and he, to this day, it's now several years later, and his patents will probably expire before anybody ever takes it unless he changes his expectations. But.
I can't talk about a specific example. I will speak to a space to watch to see if what impact recent decisions of the Supreme Court might have. MPEG-LA has ventured into other areas besides information and consumer electronics. We've recently gone into biotechnology. We've been looking for various biotechnology problems that were in need of problem solution for quite some time, and frankly, most things are done exclusively, and that's fine, and no problem existed. But with the emergence of diagnostic tests that are based on genetic testing and other biomarkers emerging, there is the likelihood that tests of the future will involve intellectual property or many inventions of many different parties in order to get a complete look at your health and what may be ailing you. Sorry, in order to pinpoint the cause of the disease. Obviously, we call this the age of personalized medicine, which is let's not call something cancer. Let's look at which gene or biomarker, which gene or other genetic cause or mutation is actually causing that particular problem, and let's save money in terms of therapies by going and targeting that solution rather than throwing darts at a board and trying to figure out what might work and what might not. And that era is upon us in terms of research. As I said, we've formed a marketplace with actually the likes of NIH and University of Pennsylvania and partners in Boston and other distinguished groups, Stanford, to aggregate this and make this intellectual property available on a non-exclusive basis to the entire market so that the market can determine for itself which of these intellectual properties it needs in order to conduct the tests that the market needs. And again, I'm not here to sow doom or anything like that, but I think the real issue in light of the Myriad decision by the Supreme Court now is going to be to see whether these technologies continue to develop, whether there's enough incentive in the market to continue their development so that inventors get the benefit of their inventions in these technologies, or whether they might dry up. And again, I'm not here to predict, but there is some evidence that these things do dry up in the aftermath of incentives being killed in the marketplace. We'll see. It's something to be watched.
Well, and the very existence of MPEG-LA is predicated upon patents and the licensing opportunities that are made possible by that. Yes. I saw one other question in the back. In the back.
Hi, thank you for coming. The congressman I work for is from Silicon Valley, where innovation is prized, and I'm curious about IP technology and your opinion on current renewable energies, clean energy, clean tech, and what IP space has to do with that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View, and one of my business school classmates is managing partner of a clean tech fund, and I was just up in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago visiting with him, and to find out, how he's doing versus how we're doing in medtech, which is kind of doom and gloom right now. He had a very similar kind of doom and gloom kind of approach right now to the industry. It's a very tough time for them, very difficult. And he was telling me about a couple of deals that, we're not disclosing confidential information, but things that he's doing due diligence on that he's potentially going to seed. But one of the issues that he's really concerned about is that because of China's huge investments in all of clean tech and all of this area, he's worried about the patentability of this particular technology because if it's not there, then with the weakening of the patent or it not being patentable, he's going to get run over essentially by foreign competitors. And he asked me if we're starting to see that in the med tech, and we have a little bit. There are some companies that are starting to become more sophisticated outside the country in that area, but apparently not anywhere near as what he's experiencing.
Maybe about 30 seconds, and then we'll maybe just...
Yeah, from the Qualcomm standpoint, that you bring up another technology that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a cell phone-related company, and that is wireless charging, and particularly for automobiles. We have a subsidiary called Halo that allows for electric cars to be charged without plugging them in. The idea is that there is a coil of wire in the bottom of your car, and there's a coil of wire in the bottom of your garage, and you drive on top of your garage at night, and it electrical current induces electrical current in your car, which charges your battery. The spread of that technology is going to depend on how well we can put together a tech transfer package that allows different car manufacturers to take a license to this on equal terms, so that they all feel like they are not disadvantaged from each other, and they get the technology that they need. And in very real sense, the dispersion of that technology won't happen in the absence of the combination of the patent rights, the permission to do it, and the know-how on actually how to do it.
Just quickly, in the solar space, the dynamics there are not that much different than what I described about the incumbents versus the upstarts, but it runs in a little bit different vector. It's really the race, and I think one of my panelists referred to China. It's the race between the low-cost providers and really the high-technology providers. So in the solar space right now, sort of the first generation has been a race towards the low cost. But unbeknownst to most who have sort of still been witnessing the nuclear winter that's going on in the solar space, there is some innovation going on in really advanced cell technology that's moving to drive the efficiency up. So different parties are focusing on different parts. China is focusing largely on the low cost. For those that are investing dollars still in that high efficiency side of the equation, yeah, patent rights are ridiculously essential, just for the reasons that were described. Last thing you want to do is have it ripped off a second time around, right?
So do any of you, kind of as we come to the end here, have any closing remarks in about 30 seconds each? Something to send the audience off with?
I think I would say it succinctly. Don't believe everything you read on this particular issue. It's probably true about most of the things that come across your desks, but this one in particular is fraught with rhetoric. It's fraught with intended rhetoric that's designed to mask really what's going on below the scenes. And a lot of people want to park the patent debate into kind of a corner of technicalities and legalisms and the like, but this is a space that really matters. It matters a lot. Our economy is becoming more and more dependent upon, obviously, innovation. Our growth rate in our economy is dependent upon it, and patents are a fundamental component to that picture. So peer through it, and I applaud you for being here to do just that.
Roger?
No specific closing remarks other than I'll be around afterwards. I'd be happy to talk about in any greater detail about any particular thing you heard today.
I just want to say thank you for taking the interest. It's great to see all of you sitting here and
Simply say, restore respect for intellectual property as a property right. Restore, or actually grant, maybe for the first time, some vision and purpose to the patent system, which doesn't bow to time expediencies, if you will. And finally, continue this dialogue. This is very important.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming to CPIP's inaugural panel briefing on the Hill. We have some materials on CPIP outside, and please leave your contact information. We will be hosting actually a conference next week on the commercial function of patents in today's innovation economy, for which actually all government employees can attend for free without having to pay the registration rate. Information is on our website at cpip.gmu.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. So thank you again for coming.